Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. And my name is Tamala Olsby, and I am from the Texas Education Agency. And I'm so glad that you've decided to join us today. This is our last webinar, and I have thoroughly enjoyed all of our interactions. And this one is in particular pretty nice for me because I really love this topic. So hopefully it will mean something to you also. I just want to point out that we do have a handout, the PowerPoint presentation, and so you might want to go run and get that and get that downloaded. And remember that when we have questions or some kind of interactions, please use the question box to make your questions known or your comments or anything like that. So anyway, we are, of course, having this webinar recorded, and it will be available for those who are missing it. So anyway, I am really, really glad you're here. So let's get going here. We have kind of a full agenda today. So again, we're covering two huge topics. One is storage that we're going to be doing very little on, but I did want to cover it. And then we're going to spend most of our time talking about outdoors and the learning environment. And we're still going to have an activity, and then we're going to kind of close things up. So that will tell you where we're going. By the end of the webinar, I am hoping that you could discuss the need for storage in a pre-kindergarten learning environment, and you would be able to even discuss options for organizing it, and that you would be able to articulate how important physical development is for the young child and how the activities of young children in a day have really, really changed over the years. And then, of course, we're going to describe what an exceptional pre-kindergarten outdoor learning environment looks like. So let's get into it. Let's get to storage. So I realize that this is not often a topic when somebody is covering the environment. But when you are aiming to improve your environment, storage becomes a hot topic, because often storage is not organized well. And so I'd like you to take a couple of pictures. Look at these pictures. This looks a little messy. Now, it obviously is not at a school. But I'd like to know, does your storage at your pre-kindergarten program, does it look more like that picture? Or does it look more like this picture? And on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being perfect and 1 being extremely messy, I would like you to think about and to rate where you think your storage right now is. And I'd like you to put that in the, I think it's the questions or chat box. And if you would just write down your number, I'd love to look at them. I think it's good for us to try to have a sense of where are we right now. So if you would not mind typing that in, that would be awesome. I see some of them. Ooh, it looks like we have a lot of people in the middle. Go ahead if you haven't typed it in yet. We've got a little time here. All right, well, it looks like there's one of you that thinks your storage is pretty good. But most of you are somewhere in the middle. So it looks like that could be an area that we could definitely perhaps improve upon. So let's figure out how to do that. So I think the first thing that you've got to consider is, where do you need storage? And we're going to talk about 3 types of storage, or 3 areas that probably most pre-kindergarten programs need help in storage. One is what I would call the common storage area. And this is an area that has shared space. So teachers, administrators would share this space. It could be used by anyone working in the pre-kindergarten program. And so in that area, there might be curricular items, there might be learning center items, there might be supplies. Like that might be where your paint and construction paper and scissors and blah, blah, blah are. And it would probably have some cleaning materials in there. So what do you do if you need more paper towels or more toilet paper or that kind of thing? So that would be one kind of storage, and that storage usually needs to be in some kind of a centralized location because everyone needs to have access to it. The other kind of storage is storage that is really particular to a specific classroom. So it usually is within a classroom, and it contains things that the teacher owns. So it's not like you would go into any classroom and just take something out of a classroom storage space, unless it was something like construction paper or paint, something like that. But more often it is things that the teacher themselves own. And then the last one is the outdoor storage, and we'll get more into this when we're talking about the outdoor equipment. But some parts of the outdoors, obviously you can't move. You know, you're not going to store your large climbing equipment. But there is a lot of portable equipment. And then I just wrote down other stuff. Like, for instance, would you need a broom or a rake or whatever that would be more conducive to the outdoors, and you need a place to put it? And a lot of times the outdoor storage area becomes very, very, very full. Now, this is not all the storage that you would find within a district, obviously. For instance, the janitorial supplies. I mentioned toilet paper and that kind of thing, but even other kinds of janitorial supplies are often kept in a centralized, like a janitorial closet or room or whatever. And so we're not going to really talk about that kind of thing. We're talking about the things that are more conducive to the classroom itself. So these are the 3 that we're going to try to at least focus on. So if we're talking about storage, I want to first start with what are just some general best practices. And those would include that the room or the space that is used for storage should be identifiable. Everyone should know where the construction paper is. Everyone should know where that room is or where that place is that they can go find another pair of scissors or some more tape or whatever it is. And the items that are used more frequently should be the easiest ones to access. So you want construction paper, paint, those kinds of items easily. You know, they are at the eye level. You can just grab what you need. Things that are used less often are at a higher level or a lower level. The types of containers and what they're used for should be very carefully considered. So there are probably a million kinds of containers that you can store things in. And I'm talking about things like yarn or paper clips, or, I mean, it could be a range of items. And what you put that in, obviously we're going to talk a little bit later about it being labeled, but the sizes, how many can you fit in the room or on the shelving unit, all of that makes a huge, huge difference. Obviously, everything should be labeled. And when we talked about easy access, it also should be easy to get to safely. So if there are very high shelves in there, which often they are, how does somebody get up there in a safe manner? So to think about a step stool or that kind of thing, I think is very, very important. And then the quality of the items needs to be maintained. So let's say you have a window in this storage area and it's very large and the sun comes in a great deal of the day. You probably don't want to put your construction paper right by the window because it will fade it out. So when you are thinking about where do things go, not only do you want to think about which things are used more, but can I maintain the quality of that item by where I am putting it? And then last but definitely not least is the items should be organized and reviewed at least annually. The reason I say annually is because think about your idea of a perfect storage area, which very few schools have. But when you're thinking about that, think how easy that makes it when someone is ordering supplies. They can go to one place, they can easily read what is there or count what's there. They can easily see what needs to be reordered and we don't have to order that. We've got plenty of that. So there's a lot to this and a lot to storage. Now, I want to make sure that's all we're going to say about storage. So, but I really think this is a huge piece that if you choose to spend some time on this, you can really improve the environment by focusing on storage. It makes the teacher's life so much easier when they know where everything is. It is well stocked. It is labeled and easy to get to. And so you might consider that when you're thinking about what else could I do to improve our environment. So we're going to go on now to the outdoor learning environment, because this is where we want to spend the majority of our time. So while you're thinking about the outdoor learning environment, I want to ask you a question. And I want you to think about when you were a little kid. And I'd like you to answer the following question. So let me see if I can pull this up. Just a second here. All righty. So I'm hoping on your screen, I'm not sure exactly what you are seeing, but I'd like you to choose from one of the things that you see there. So when you were a kiddo, what did you play? Where did you play? How many of you played indoors, outdoors, or equally both? Keep voting because I'll tell you when I'm about to close it. But tell me where did you like to play? Were you an indoor kid? Were you an outdoor kid? Or did you do both? Okay, I think I'm going to close the poll now. And I'm going to let you see the poll results. Hopefully you can see them. If you can't, I'm going to show that there was 57% of you that equally played between the indoors and outdoors. And there were 43% of you that played in the outdoors. No one said they played indoors mostly. I think that's pretty amazing. All righty. Then I want you to look at a video, and I may need to, just a second here. There we go. Here, just a second. Sorry about that. I want you to listen to this video. It is from Hidden Valley. And children are answering a question, and there's actually 3 generations that you're going to hear answer their question. And once you've seen this video, I'm going to ask you to write your reaction to it in the chat or questions box. So let's take a look at it. Sorry about that. I just realized that I still have the poll showing. So sorry about that. Let's get it going again.
When you were a kid, what did you do for fun?
So we'd go blueberry picking, for instance. Just so cute.
But it was true. We grew watermelons, plantains.
I found an old sign which was big enough for me to sit on and made a great toboggan. It was very slick, very fast.
I had a few fish in my basket, and I looked up on this bluff, and here's this black bear sitting there watching me. If he starts chasing me, I'm going to keep throwing the fish out of my basket until he's gorged and he won't bother me. And what did you like to do for fun?
I apologize.
You go door to door, get a group of kids, and you play lots of games, hide and seek, just going out to the field and playing baseball.
And we built these massive forts, the kind that you can actually sit in and play in, with our friends. And it was just really wonderful.
So what do you like to do for fun?
Video games. Definitely.
I like to go on my phone, text,
Some email.
My favorite thing to do in the world is definitely watching videos and playing video games. Those take up so much of my time.
3 hours or 3 to 4 hours a day. Same.
5 hours straight.
Just last week, I watched 23 episodes of a TV series in less than 4 days.
I forget. I'm in a house. I have parents. I have a sister. I have a dog. I just think I'm in the video game. I completely get lost. I would die if I don't have my tablet.
Whenever I feel upset, I play video games and I feel normal. It's really wonderful.
When your daughters grow up, your great-great-grandkids, what do you think will happen if this trend continues?
It's scary to think that they'll never have to leave the house.
Cindy grew up doing a lot of the things that I did and enjoyed, and I see what my grandsons are doing today, and it's mind-boggling.
By the time they have kids, it's going to be a really different environment.
I actually feel a little sad because I feel like he's missing out on what's out there in the beautiful world.
That special connection with nature, I think it's innate in all children, but needs to be nurtured.
So, what did you think of that? And you'll notice at the top of this slide, I say, is this what we want? So if you would take a couple of minutes and just write in how did this affect you? What did you think about when you heard this? I'm going to give you a couple minutes because I know it. I remember my reaction the first time I saw it. So I want you to think about, is this a bunch of baloney or is this real? And is this what we want? How did you react to it? Go ahead and type in your reactions in the questions chat box. I see sad but true. Safety concerns definitely play a part in why a lot of parents let their kids stay inside. And oh man, is not that true? I remember we never thought about being unsafe outside when I was growing up. Another person, heartbreaking. It makes me want to take all the technology away from my son. Well, I don't know that we want to do that. So, but it's confusing. Somebody else said confusing. Yeah. And what happened? Is it just because things got a little crazy with safety? Someone else said, as an educator, we cannot change the home, but we can change the classroom. Very, very good. Well said. Anyone else that wants to say a comment? I've watched this video more times than I'd like to admit. And I can now watch it without tears welling up inside. But I just thought, oh, how sad. What have we done? And how did we get this way? And it's just something to think about. So thank you for letting me share it. So if the outdoor environment is important, which I do think we think it is, what does the child learn from being outdoors? So let's take a look at this. In an outdoor learning environment, young students have the opportunity to practice their large motor skills. Now, that might not seem very important, but students that do not have good large motor skills are going to have difficulty in school. So the two things go hand in hand. We've learned in several webinars that all parts of the body are intertwined. And so this is very, very important. I also like this. To be physically active increases the flow of blood, oxygen, and water to the brain, which leads to heightened awareness and focus. Man, don't we need that in school? It gives kids the opportunity to experience and discover things about nature with their five senses, to be creative, use their imagination. We heard that in the video. To develop the ability to share, take turns, play cooperatively. It helps children cope better with stress. Do you know anyone that when they're really stressed, they want to go take a walk? Yeah, it works. It enhances their motor coordination, strength and agility, and it gives them the opportunity to be a little risky, to have some risk behavior, to test their ability physically in a safe environment. And when we realize we only have children for a certain amount of time, it is very important that we're using every second of that time to its fullest. So what we're going to go into now is, if it is that important, then how can we make it the best it could be? So we're getting all the gusto we can out of a really good environment. The next slide is going to show you just some general guidelines. Obviously, with the age that we're talking about, we would want a fence around the yard or the play area that is outdoors. It is common to say that you should have 75 square feet per student on the playground, that you have access to the outdoor play environment safely. You can get there safely. You don't have to walk across the street, down, away. You can get there in a safe manner. It should be used daily, and we're going to talk about that a little more later. There should be shade, especially in Austin, right? The space should be arranged so that the activities there don't interfere with one another. Let me give you a great example. Let's say you're blessed enough to have swings on your outdoor environment, and you've given the kids some balls and a bat, some gloves, and they're actually playing baseball too. Or they're kicking the ball, or you have a soccer ball out there. Well, you don't want those items to be accidentally kicked or thrown in front of a swing, which might then hurt someone. So when you're thinking about the space that you have, you need to make sure that whatever you're doing in that space, that the activities won't cause a child to get hurt. There should be good drainage, and oh man, doesn't that apply to nowadays when we've had so much rain. Having good drainage in your outdoor environment just makes it so that you can use it more often. There should be drinking water available. In the hot summertime, even not in the summer. Today is pretty hot in Austin. And kids if they're out there for a while, they're going to get thirsty. So how do you make that not to be a concern? Where's the toilet at? So how do you make sure that when the kids are in the outdoor environment, that if one of them has to go to the bathroom, you don't have to gather them all up just because one child has to go to the bathroom. So thinking through that might really help. And we already talked about storage. If you have a really good outdoor environment, you're going to need storage. And the outdoor environment should be accessible for all children of all abilities. And often schools are really good at having large climbing equipment that is accessible to students that might have some kind of a physical disability. So these are just general guidelines. And before we go a whole lot further, I want to clarify a couple of words that we're going to be using in the outdoor equipment. And those words are what is stationary and what is portable. And I think you can guess what the stationary things are. Those are things like your big climbing structure. If you're lucky enough to have swings or a slide, sometimes there's a basketball hoop that's actually in cement, so you don't move it around. You might have a sandbox or a garden or a playhouse. Even tables and chairs often are cemented in so that they can't walk away when school isn't in session. And a workbench area. We talked about that as a learning center indoors, but sometimes I have seen workbenches or work areas outdoors. And then your portable equipment would be all of the other stuff. And this is the stuff that needs storage. So your wheeled toys, tricycles, any balls and whatever else you have to go along with that ball, materials to build with, sand, dirt, you need buckets and shovels and rakes, jump ropes, hula hoops, nature items. What would that be? Bug catchers, rain gauges, magnifying glasses, bird feeder. I mean, you can go on and on with that one. And then garden supplies. If you have a garden, where can the kids get those supplies at? So these are items that often we don't see on a school campus. But this would be a really good outdoor environment for a pre-kindergarten class. So if we were going over best practices, these are the ones that I want to focus on, and we're going to just say them quickly now, but we're going to talk about them a little more in detail. So we already talked about it should be used daily. There should be time for both free unstructured play and structured or teacher-led activities. And teacher could be a PE teacher or just the regular teacher. It should have opportunity for the student to practice at least 7 skills, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. It should be used as an extension of the pre-kindergarten classroom, and we're going to go over that. And it should have many natural elements, and we're going to spend a little more time on that one. So if it's supposed to be a daily event, that's not too hard to do, except when you've got bad weather. So when it's sunny out, it's easy to have outdoor time, but when it's rainy, it is not. So, and it rains a lot in Texas, believe it or not. So if you would not mind, what do you do when it's rainy, especially when it's been rainy day after day after day? What do you do to give the children a large motor activity without going outdoors? And if you wouldn't mind writing that in the question chat box, I will read those responses. So I'll give you a little time to write that, because I'd actually I'd like to hear from you. What do you do? How do you handle that? What do you do when it has been raining for days on end? How do you help the children have an outdoor learning experience when really you're more or less stuck inside? Okay, I can see one person talked about that you all go to the cafeteria. And so they arranged some outdoor equipment in the cafeteria. How awesome. Another one of you used the school gym. Awesome. Oh, I love it. A dance party or an indoor obstacle course. So this could either be in the gym or it could actually be in the classroom. You don't even have to leave your room. You could set some of that up. I love it. Another person said that on their campus, they either use the gym or a very large music room that they have, and they're allowed there to play with balls, hula hoops, and dance. Awesome. So the kids can sometime, every once in a while, when the weather is not cooperating, you can still have a good outdoor environment. I want to go over with you, what does the education code say about outdoors? So I actually want to read this. I probably should have put this on a slide, but it is found in TEC 28.002, and it's an L. A school district shall require a student enrolled in full day pre-K. Now, we don't pay for pre-K, but it does say that it's full day in kindergarten or in a grade level below grade 6 to participate in moderate or vigorous daily physical activity for at least 30 minutes throughout the school year as part of the district's physical education curriculum or through structured activity during a school campus's daily recess. To the extent practicable, a school district shall require a student enrolled in pre-kindergarten on less than a full day basis to participate in the same type and amount of physical activity as a student enrolled in full day pre-K. So it's 30 minutes, and it appears that part of it should be structured and part of it should be free. It's up to the child initiated. Even in the administrative code, and this is 103.1003A1, it also says that there should be 30 minutes of moderate or vigorous daily physical activity, but does allow for 135 minutes weekly, which if you broke it down, it's 27 minutes. So, anyway. And how about, I see some of you saying, hey, can you say that again? How about when we're done, or tomorrow morning, probably, I will send these 2 codes to each of you. And that way you can, I will write them out and do that for you. Okay. The administrative code, just a little caveat, it doesn't say anything about pre-K. So it's kindergarten up. So just a little caveat. But it does appear that 30 minutes is the norm here. So what could you do? We're going over the best practices. And so when we said it was a daily event and that it should have both structured and unstructured, we've taken care of that. Now we're going to get to, remember, they were supposed to have opportunities to practice at least 7 skills. So what does that mean? Well, in the Early Childhood Environment Rating Scale, which is a tool that is very highly used across our nation, it is often what is considered best practice and it is an environmental rating scale. So, and that is where I got the number 7. So the idea here is that, oops, I was supposed to show that slide before. So we have free, unstructured, like you see on the picture on the left, and then more teacher-led, an idea on the right. Sorry about that. I got ahead of myself. So in outdoor, when you're trying to do these 7 skills, here are just some of them. So I just kind of wanted to make sure, because you could be going, oh my land, 7. Well, think about this. If you were given the children what we were talking about earlier, just a ball, one of those red rubber balls that everybody has. They could throw it. They could catch it. They could kick it. You've already hit 3 of them. So when you're thinking about this, don't get stuck on, think a little more broadly. When you're looking at a piece of equipment, I think this is a good way to judge how good the piece of equipment is. Because a lot of times one piece of equipment is going to give you 7 skills. Now, whether the children use it properly is one thing, but So anyway, this is what is considered best practice. A outdoor environment that is used by children in pre-kindergarten on a daily basis should have the ability for them to practice at least 7 skills daily, have the opportunity to. The next thing we're going to talk about is how can you make the outdoor environment thought of as just an extension of the regular classroom. So when you're thinking of all the things that you do indoors, what could you do outdoors? So we're going to go over some of these. So let's kind of think of some examples. Could you do reading, listening to a story, or listening to a book? Could you do that outdoors? Yeah, that's probably one of the easiest things to move outdoors. And when it's a nice sunny day, and let's dream a little, let's say you have a beautiful shade area, how fun if you could go outdoors to read the book. I just think that would be fun. And that's not hard. That's not a hard thing to do. What about art? Could you do art outside? Could you do science outside? Science really probably should be done outside. There's a lot more science stuff outside than there is inside. Art, I think, can be done, especially if you've got a table out there. You can do all kinds of things. Or a paint easel. We used to have paint easels that were attached to the fence. And they were up every single day going outdoors. How about math? I mean, can the kids do math outside? Pre-K math? Yeah, they can. Can they sort items on the ground, in the grass? Yeah, they can. Of course they can. Oh my, can they eat outside? Yeah. You might have to have a blanket, or it might need some tables. So if you were going to buy something for your outdoor, you might want to think of tables first. But even mealtime could be done outdoors. Now, of course, you've got to work with your own district and their rules. Music can be done outdoors. I think the hardest thing about having the outdoor environment really be thought of it as an extension to the classroom is the fact that usually there are several classes using the same outdoor environment. And so this would take, if you were gonna choose this as something, maybe we should think about this. This would take a little, I think, organizing. Or maybe teachers would have to sign up. I need the outdoors from this time to this time on this day. And another teacher would say, I'm going to take it from this time to this time, besides their regular recess time or their regular PE time, whichever you have, or some of you have both. So I would just like to really encourage you. This is a way, without a lot of work, that you can help the environment, help children just to have more experience outdoors, is not to spend so much time indoors while you're teaching. And of course, if you're doing this, the same kind of rules apply. Whatever your theme is, or your unit, your project, should also then be the focus of both the indoor and the outdoor. So people that do, schools that do this really, really well, it's very organized, because it almost has to be, because you're sharing a space. And often they are learning about the same thing. So having some, they're all learning about insects, or you're all learning about the season of spring or you're all, and then that makes this a little more feasible. So the last best practice that I went over was that the outdoor environment should have a lot of natural elements. Nowadays, you go to a playground, like at a park or even at a school, and there's a lot of plastic, a lot of plastic. And another best practice is that you intentionally put natural elements into the outdoor environment. Even our early childhood program self-assessment, which I know you all are familiar with it because we talked about it several times, both in pre-K and K, both say that the highest level of quality for outdoors is to have 5 or more natural elements in the outdoor environment. So what would be considered a natural element? Let's look at this list here. Vegetation, that's easy. Now, that doesn't mean that you say, we have grass, that's 1. There is a flower over here, that's 2. There's a weed over here, that's 3. And we have 1 tree, that's 4. I've got it. No, vegetation is 1 item. Pebbles, rocks, boulders. Now, a lot of times people don't like pebbles, rocks, and boulders, but this is making the environment more natural. Why would we want to do it? Because our kids aren't going outdoors. Remember the first video? Wood. So leave the sticks on the playground. Insects, water. One of the best environments that I have ever helped create had a water pump in the middle of the sandbox. It was awesome. And it was definitely a favorite thing to play with every day. Dirt, a garden, trees, leaves, pine cones, mounds, oh my, slopes, and loose parts. What are loose parts? Well, loose parts are materials that can easily be moved, combined, stacked, taken apart, put back together, and they can be repurposed. So they're very open-ended. And to show you a little bit more about loose parts, I want you to watch one more video, if you don't mind. And I'm going to have to, again, get this one. Sorry about that. And this is a school that takes their outdoor play environment very seriously. You're not only going to see loose parts in here, you are going to see a lot of natural elements and how the children are using it, and even how the teachers are using it to teach. I want you to pay very specific attention to the materials that you see the children playing with and to what you think the children are learning. So, and you're going to see a little bit older children in part of this, but any of this could easily be applied to young children. So let's look at this.
It's a privilege to be able to take the children outside and to really get to know the whole child and to teach the whole child.
Honey, one's like pink. There's only about 2 more. 2. And we need more than that. We do it for all.
When we take children outside to learn in nature using loose parts, it really allows me to see my students for their whole being, who they are, and it allows me to understand their needs in a very different context than the regular classroom.
So where are we going? Okay, so we're just. Okay, the time to go here.
I think the idea is to just foster this sense of creativity in the children. So when we're going outside, we use a lot of natural materials. So sticks would be considered loose parts, tree cookies, stumps, planks, scarves.
We can tie that end to there, and then we can the other end to there. That's the TV. This is my house.
Our children today are living this really hurried life, and very rarely do they have time and space to engage in free play that isn't directed by adults.
And I think it kind of leads to maybe more critical thinking, more creativity, more imagination, because you're kind of forcing them. They're in the driver's seat. They're deciding what they're going to do with those parts.
Yeah, I think you need more gas. Get some gas. Some gas station. I see one right over there. Pull in there. Wait. We lost the tire. Okay. Cooper, go fix the tire. It's in the back.
There's a lot of construction going on. So they like to construct things, like they like to make huts or shelters, or houses are a big thing.
We built these blocks and then big blocks, and that's part of the house.
Loose parts are very affordable. Oftentimes they're found objects or donated objects such as tarps or kitchenware.
We're using different materials, and we're figuring out which to use and how to make the different things. So we're learning that way. That's the bed. So, the blanket.
Sometimes in the classroom, you'll have students who are really reluctant to share or even raise their hand. When we go outside and we're using these parts, it's amazing to see how these reluctant speakers seem to come alive.
Hey, you just said vampires and butterflies. I saw an ant spider over here.
No way. What is an ant spider?
They're parts of spider.
It's part ant, part spider.
But where is it now? It disappeared.
We see sometimes a whole new side of a child come out when we're outside.
You'll see students counting. You'll see students creating small play. There are so many ways the curriculum ties into this type of experiential learning. What we are hoping by going outside with our students on our playground is that students will develop a connection to nature that will be lifelong.
In a lot of ways, they're our future. They're the ones who are going to be making decisions about the world that we're going to be living in. And I think it's important that they have a connection to nature, that they care about nature. Sometimes when we go back to using simpler things, when we go back to basics, there's a deeper impact.
I'm sorry, but was that not awesome? And when you break it down, that would not be that hard. You definitely would have to have a place to put it. Where are you going to store it all? But I see a couple people going, love it, love it. I mean, to me, it's amazing. So when you're thinking about all this, because I know I've kind of pushed the envelope here, They're big challenges in outdoor environments. One of them is just time, and we talked about that different grade levels can be sharing it. It's a shared space, but that can be rectified. There's always a safety issue too. I don't want to downplay that, but I do want to. I got a quote from the International School Ground Alliance that said that the playground should be as safe as necessary, not as safe as possible. That's huge. And money. Now, what we just saw doesn't cost that much money, but really, if you want good equipment and all that stuff, that also costs money. And the last thing that I think makes it a challenge is that often LEAs have huge priorities, and the outdoor environment for the students often it rarely rises to the top of those priorities. But I do want you to think through, when you've got challenges, you can still concentrate on the couple of things that you have control over. So if you look at all of this and go, oh my lands, I can't do like hardly any of this, think through, how could you make your outdoor environment more of an extension of your classroom? Or how could you add some loose parts to your environment? I think those would be two of the maybe easier ways to proceed. We are almost out of time here, and I've got too many slides. So if you have a question, I want you to type it, but I'm gonna go on, but I'm gonna get to your question. So if you've got a question, type. And I want to get to our activity. Now, we are not going to have another PLC. We said that at the last PLC. So this is our last webinar, and we are not going to have the opportunity for all of us to get together and talk about all of these subjects that we covered today. But I do want you to consider doing one activity that would be in relationship to this webinar. And that would either be focusing on your storage. Do you have enough storage, and what could you do about it? Or what is your approach to the outdoors? And what is one way that perhaps you could improve that? And I know you have a million things to do this summer, but if I could push you one last time, it would be to consider one of these two to make some progress on. I have to read one more quote to you, sorry, but we're going to leave this conversation about the outdoor environment with this quote. Once upon a time, in the not so distant past, many children left the adult world on a daily basis, and they entered an outdoor world filled with fantasy and improvisation. Using sticks, branches, logs, sand, dirt, water, and other natural materials, they built castles, houses, ships, rockets. As they ran, jumped, dug, climbed, slid, twirled, and whirled, their imaginations took them across the prairie in covered wagons, up the tallest mountain, into outer space, and on a high sea adventure. At the end of the day, they returned indoors, dirty and tired, but feeling happy and confident, competent, and full of stories. I love it. That's what I want for our kids. So let's review very briefly where we've been and what's next. So look at all of these subjects we covered this year. No wonder we're tired, right? we've covered all kinds of learning centers and the teacher's role and the scheduling and what do you put up in the room and how do you engage families. And now we've covered storage in the outdoor environment. We've covered a lot. And this is our Unit 8. We had the webinar today. I've given you a future improvement activity. We are not going to have a PLC, but I did want you to know during the week of June 3rd, I don't want you to do anything next week because I know you can't. You guys are buried and I know it. But if you want to talk with me, I would love to talk with you one more time. And it doesn't have to be one time because you know you can always get a hold of me. But I would love to set up a phone call with you on June 3rd. We are not going to go by our regular phone schedule. But if you want to talk with me during that week, just shoot me over an email or call and say, hey, Tamala, are you free on da-da-da date? And give me a time and a date so that I can make sure that I'm available. The last couple of finishing touches, you have been given some items. I know I sent them to you. A user satisfaction survey. I asked you to write down some success stories. And there was another self-assessment that we're going to actually use to actually try to figure out, were these support networks valuable? Did change happen? Did improvement happen? And all of those are due a week from tomorrow. So they are all due May 24th. And then we are going to be doing some support networks in the fall. And so I just want you to watch for that. I can't really say much about it, but I do want you to watch for it. And remember, please remember, I am only a phone call away. I am only a email away, and you can always reach me. I have to say one more time that I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together. We've actually learned together a lot about the environments that children need nowadays. And I am thrilled that I got to spend this time with you. And I just wanted to say thank you. I have one more quote. You know, I always end these with a quote, so I'm going to read it. And then the reason I picked this quote is because this quote reminds me of you. And why is that? Because I know the hard work that you guys do day in and day out with those little pre-kindergarten students. And I know the work that many of you have put in this year to improve your environment. And this quote just reminded me of that. And I'm hoping it is encouraging to you. The man who says it can't be done is generally interrupted by the person doing it. I know that you are doing it. Keep up the good work. Thank you. This will end our webinar.